Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. on July 14th, 2021. Welcome to DAC. Ms. Hope, can I have the call of order, please, or the roll call?
Roger Jansen. Let the record reflect that Roger Jansen is not present. Nick Mihalich.
Here.
Brian Checkis. Let the record reflect that Brian Checkis is not present. Stephen Graham. Let the record reflect that Stephen Graham is not present. Michael Cuevas.
Here.
Brad McPherson.
Present.
Gregory Gabriel.
Here.
Thank you. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to the approval of minutes from June 9th, 2021. Does anyone have any comment or correction on the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Motion is on the floor. Can I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approval of the minutes carries. Next is a report from the city urban designer, Ms. Aponte.
Good morning, board members. Ana Maria Ponte, City Urban Designer for the record. This morning I had a good announcement to make. We have with us this morning Chris Kimmerly. He's here. He is the new hire for the city. He's going to be filling the City Urban Design position. He is a graduate from the University at Buffalo with a bachelor's in environmental design and a master in urban planning with a specialization in urban design and physical planning. He previously worked for a private design and planning consultant, a land planning, design, and landscape architecture, and is going to be helping me with all the downtown projects. So we welcome Chris, and we have a lot of work for him.
Congratulations. Welcome, Chris.
That's all I have for today.
Okay, thank you. Next is remarks by the chairperson. No remarks here. Next item is declaration of ex parte communications. Has anyone on the board had any ex parte communications? No?
No.
Okay,
Nope.
Seeing none. The next segment is public hearing. Do we have any members of the public that need to be sworn in for today's case?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is continued cases. And then we have FSPR 20-02A.
Good morning, Ana Maria Ponte, City Urban Designer for the record. This is a formal site plan review 20-02A. It's a request by Joseph Berdon of Carlton Fields on behalf of 350 Development LLC for an amendment to the approved special review for the 350 South Australian project granted by the Downtown Action Committee on December 9, 2020, and a variance from Article 4, Section 94-116, Table 4-12, Building Requirements CLD 25, regarding the conditional setback for parking above the 5th story on a secondary street frontage. So as I mentioned, this is an amendment to a previous approval, so we're going to have first the presentation by the applicant, and then staff will come in to present the recommendation.
Great.
Good morning. My name is Joe Verdone. I'm with the law firm of Carlton Fields. It's a pleasure today to present this to you. We were back here in December with this project, and we've made some changes based on some of the comments that we heard from that meeting. We've been continuing to work with our neighbors to try to come up with a more mutual beneficial design that will work better for phase one as well as for us. The project is located at 350 Australian Avenue. It meets all the sub-district characteristics, and the building has not really changed, and the footprint of it has been very minor change, and all these elements we've previously demonstrated that we meet, but just going through them, the building amenities and entrances are located on the ground floor, fronting Clearwater Drive. That's in an effort to activate Clearwater Drive. Active uses are provided along the public space and along Clearwater Drive. Ground floor active uses front all pedestrian pathways adjacent to the building. Shared pedestrian pathways are provided to facilitate connections to the adjacent properties. Variations in the building height are provided to promote a diverse skyline. The proposed tower elements is orientated towards Clearwater Drive as dictated by the code, and a generous amount of terraces and balconies are provided to connect the interior of the building to the exterior surrounding. The relationship of the building and the site and the surroundings. The building was designed in consideration of a three-dimensional context that includes surrounding properties, public and private. The building scale is consistent with the sub-district requirements. The proposed plan includes reconstruction of the existing conflicting utilities, pedestrian walkways, and streetscapes that presently exist on Clearwater Drive and improve them to meet the current code. All the quantitative requirements included in section 94-109 have been met with the exception of the one variance that we're asking for. Traffic circulation flow. The proposed development promotes pedestrian circulation, providing an attractive, safe, comfortable paths of travel. Vehicular circulation is efficient in design, and the design limits negative impacts to the pedestrian movement. And vehicular circulation does not distract from the active uses occurring on-site or in the adjacent open space. Building design. Again, the building design has been pretty much consistent from the original approval, but the building's mass, bulk, and proportions, fenestration, rhythm have all been taken into consideration. All three structures abutting the open space have been designed to maintain their own unique identity, so each will continue to read as a separate project. Design elements included the building materials, color palette, style cues from the surrounding area were considered when we were developing our design. The proposed active uses abutting the open space and Clearwater Drive are intended to help activate the district with non-residential neighborhood uses. And the proposed open space design enhancements doubles the amount of usable open space provided and it exceeds minimum code requirements by 100% for the size and area. Public realm. The plan has more than doubled that amount of active uses along Clearwater Drive. Code requires 30%. We're up to close to 70%. We've also activated the open space by putting the drainage features that were previously there, that were dry retention that took up more than 50% of the site. We put them underground so the area can become more usable. That gave us a doubling of the space. Let's see. We've upgraded the open space to be more consistent with the new code, providing shaded seated areas and other amenities that are required under the current DMP. I think that's kind of it. We're moving in the public realm, we're improving that by rebuilding all of the non-conforming water lines, sewer lines, sidewalks, all that kind of stuff, the streetscape, all that's being rebuilt to improve the public realm. We've been continuing to work with staff and the two associations to refine the prior approval design to be more mutually beneficial for both parties. We've lowered the previously approved garage by 2 full floors to allow the height of the amenity pool decks of both buildings to be more compatible in height. That was a big pushback from the neighbors the last time. They really didn't want to look at a garage, they'd rather look at a deck. So we've worked hard to make that happen. We maintained the physical separation between the structures. That was a desire of the phase 1 to not be attached, for us not to attach to their building. We provided additional at-grade parking for delivery maintenance vehicles for phase 1. We've redirected our main entrance to Clearwater Drive to alleviate as much traffic out of their driveway as possible. Again, we reconstructed those drainage features, placing them underground to create a formal lawn within the open space. We've improved the usable size of the open space, making it consistent with the code, and we've provided a separate dog park that will be utilized by both buildings. This is our existing approval, and I'm going to introduce Alfonso Gerardo, who is our architect, and he'll walk you through what the changes were between the previous approval, which you're seeing here on screen, and what we're proposing now.
Good morning. My name is Alfonso Jurado. I'm with CLAD. We're the architects on the project. The main driver of the change was the attempt to get the 2 podiums to line up better, as Joe mentioned before. It was a concern that the Edge 1 residents have. In the process of doing that, what we did is eliminated the wrap units on the garage. That allowed us to make the garage larger, more efficient, and be able to bring that down by 2 floors. Additionally, as a benefit to our project, those liner floors are less efficient because you are not double loading the corridor. So we were able to do that, to have all the floors be the same, and all the floors have double loaded corridors, which help the efficiency of our building. If we go, in terms of the expression of the building, we try to maintain the same language that we had before to minimize sort of the impact of the change to the partie of the building. Right, so all of these things we've already covered. The amenity deck, we lowered by 2 floors, the parking, the efficiency. We eliminated 2 of the setback waivers that we had previously on the south side of the property. We've improved the internal loading slightly. The double loaded floor plates, which I mentioned before. In the process of doing this, the unit count was increased from 423 to 459, and then we have 3 live-work units included in that count on the ground floor. The unit mix changed slightly just because of the way that the building was configured. The unit mix had to change to accommodate, but essentially the unit mix is the same as we had it before, barring some small differences. So what you're seeing on the screen now, that is the proposed design, the change to the building. So the elements that you see wrapping the garage or cladding the garage are elements that were there before when we had the units behind there or on those levels. So we've kept that language throughout. One of the advantages that this does is it allows us to have a more defined base. We're able to set back the building on that 7th floor, on the amenity floor, which creates a more defined base, and I think helps to further break up the mass a little bit, which was one of the concerns that we had on the previous scheme. These are the 2, this is the view on the left is from Clearwater, and then the view on the right is from the drop-off, the current drop-off, the existing drop-off through the park to our building. And again, you can see that the base of the building is much more clearly defined than it was before. And while we increase the height of the building, I think the massing is improved because of the fact that we've got that definition on the base. These are just the numbers. You can see the ground floor, the circulation is basically the same as it was before. The only difference being that we interrupted the circulation through this driveway into the loading, which I think helps separate those two and prevents people from being able to go through, cars going through the loading areas and out through the secondary egress, this is a one-way drive. Basically, the delivery vehicles and the garbage and all that will come in through here and then come through this and out into Clearwater. They are not able to come in through here as we had in the previous scheme. So again, that hasn't really changed, but we've sort of separated the vehicular from the service circulation in a better way. This is the previous scheme. You can see the garage with aligned units. And this is the current scheme where the garage is able to take the entire floor plate, and therefore we're able to make that more efficient and bring the number of floors down. This is the current amenity level. You can see the building is set back now, again, defining that podium and helping out with the massing. And this is our typical floor. Typical floor is very similar to what it was before. There's not a lot of changes there. One of the things that I neglected to mention is we also added an elevator. You can see it here to resolve the parking for the retail spaces. We weren't not able to get all the parking on the ground floor. They're going to have to go up to the 2nd floor. So we provided an elevator to be able to come down and not have to mix the circulation of the residents and the people that are coming to the retail. So you see it here You come down, get out, and then from here you can go out to the sidewalk and go to either one of the two retails. And these are the elevations. And here you can see what we were trying to do. The main driver for this was to try to get from an 8-story podium on the lower level, the lower slide, to a 6-story podium or, on the slide on top. You see the pool deck of the edge is up at this elevation, which matches pretty closely to the elevation of our amenity deck. Our pool, because of the restrictions of the garage height, is raised another 4 feet above that, which brings it about 4 or 5 feet higher than their pool deck, but very close. And if you compare what we had before to what we have now, I think the improvement is pretty obvious. And these are some of the views from their pool deck back to ours. You can see that, you know, the views of the garage are pretty much obscured. This is their pool deck, from their pool deck as it exists today. Those hedges are existing, the vegetation is there, that landscaping is there. And this would be the view that the residents from the Edge 1 would have of our project. And these are the contextual elevations, putting the project in the context. These are details of the landscape plan for the open space. As you can see, what Joe mentioned, currently what's there now, there's a circular feature in the center. Around that is dry retention, which is about 4 or 5 feet lower than the rest of the public space, and hard to use. I think most of the time, in this time of the year anyway, it's, you know, somewhat wet or filled with water. And so what we've done is we've internalized that. We're going to use a system that uses something akin to milk crates that allow the water to store. It creates a space between the top surface and the water table, and allows the water to be stored and then percolate through. And on top of that, we can put sod. So it creates an open space that's very usable because it has a large sodded open space, which you can see here in the center. And then it's got the landscaping and seating and shrubbery and all that along the edges, defining the space. And you can see here the connection of the retail space. This corner space here, we're thinking is more than likely going to be food service of some sort. I mean, that would be the ideal use for that. And you have the ability to have tables and chairs spill out into the public space, into this southeastern corner of the public space, activating that space. You can see here on the left a rendering showing that public space, viewing it back towards the building. And these are more detailed views of that public space. You can see the tables and chairs here on the rendering on the left. So this could be very nicely activated, and it would be an amenity both for our building and for the district generally. There's office space to the north of us and to the south that could use these, that could use a place to eat and hang out, during the workday. And these are just the views of the building, which you've already seen, and I think that wraps it up. Any questions? Joe, I have one more thing to add.
We are asking for a waiver on the location of the parking on the 6th floor. The code requires that parking that's above the 5th floor be paced 25 feet back from this property line. We're asking for that to be reduced to 15, I believe it's 15 feet, correct? 27 required, it's 27 required, and we're asking to have a 15-foot, 8-foot setback. This regulates where cars are parked in the garage. It does not change the structure itself. But because if we waste those spaces, it would require us to make the garage taller or be underparked. So that's why the reason for the variance. We got rid of the other two variances, and we're trying to keep this as a minimum as possible, but that variance would not impact the way the building looks. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. Ms. Ponte?
Thank you. Now staff is going to go through our own analysis of the request. So the changes are, as they were explained by the applicant, they're minimal in the big picture because the project still continues to function the same way, but they have somehow they are substantial also, so it's kind of the two-way. So this is the first change that I'm going to talk about is the removal of the liner units and the reduction of the parking podium. This is a comparison between the approved elevation from December last year and the proposed elevation. So what we really are talking about is the lower portion, where before that lower portion had units wrapping that garage, so hiding it from view along Clear Lake Drive, but also along the frontage of the open space. Now that is basically an exposed garage that is being proposed as architecturally treated by the applicant. So that is kind of the big difference in the proposal. The tower element continues to be in a similar language than they have, except it's a little bit taller. Instead of the 17, is a 22-story tower component. This change came about not only what the applicant expressed their desire to lower the podium for the parking and address the concerns that were raised by the adjacent owners of the residential edge building in relationship with the podium of the pool deck, but also there were, as they explained on their justification statement, there were some concerns about the marketability of the units facing the intermodal transit station and the tri-rail facility. So that it was considered by their market analysis that those lower units were less feasible for lease, and Mr. Cuevas will know about that. So that kind of helped to make the decision to move those units up and have a more efficient parking podium that was lower, 2 levels below what was proposed. It was original 8 stories, now it's 6 stories, but basically doesn't have any liner units. The implications of that are, in a staff's perspective, we of course like the previous approval because having active uses on the street is always the preferred urban design approach. However, the code allows them to do this. The table 4-12 building requirements for CLD 25, that is the zoning designation for this property, allows or does not require active uses between the floors 2 and 5 along a secondary street, which is Clearwater Drive is a secondary street. So the applicant is allowed to do this implementation. They are not required to have basically active uses above the second floor. They are required to have active uses on the ground floor, but as Mr. Verdon said, the requirement is 30%. They are actually providing around 70% of active uses along Clearwater Drive and also along the public open space. So staff believes is a reasonable change, not that we love it, but they are allowed to do it. So they have worked with staff accommodating the architectural design for the screening of the garage, and we think it's compatible with the building and actually differentiates very well the base, the middle, and the top, and the whole architectural treatment of the entire building. The treatment of that garage is designed with punch openings with recessed panels painted in different tones of gray. As I say, the new design emphasizes the podium element and clearly differentiates it from the tower element where the residential units are located. And the ground floor is still activated, so staff believes that is a reasonable change. Staff is recommending additional large trees along the south side of the open space to screen the view of the garage. This was condition that was included in the original approval. In general, for the entire open space, we were requesting the applicant to consider additional shade trees for the entire space. They added some trees on the south side. In this case, we are recommending that they change the trees that they put for larger trees that actually grow bigger and screen somehow the facade, this north facade of the building, because it doesn't have, now it's even more important because it doesn't have any active uses. So we would like to really further screen that parking garage structure. So it's basically the south side of the open space where they have some flowering trees. They could select other trees that grow a little bit bigger and provide more screening for that garage. As we already went through, the applicant went through all the explanation of how the podium matches now, or it's very close to the elevation of the existing. So this definitely is a big improvement and for the concerns raised in the December hearing. So we support that change. In terms of the increase in building height and total number of units, the building still complies with the district requirement. The district allows up to 25 stories. They are only going to 22. And if you can see in this context elevation, there are buildings around the project that are actually taller than what they are proposing. So it's still compatible with the district requirements and with the area. Based on the updated traffic statement prepared by Simmons and Whites, the surrounding intersections will continue to operate at acceptable levels of service despite the additional 35 units that they included in the project. So the traffic is not an issue with the changes that they introduce. I'm going to go to the last, the request that they are asking for the variance. As you know, they asked originally for 2 variances on the south setback. Those 2 variances are removed. They are not needed any longer, but they are requesting at this point a variance from table 4-12 regarding the conditional setback for parking uses above the 5th story on secondary street frontages. The current requirement is that they have to provide 27 feet of setback when they provide parking without the liner uses. That is basically the 12 feet minimum setback that they are required for the entire building, plus an additional 15 feet setback that is required if they are not providing liner uses, like in this case, when they have parking above the 5th level or 68 feet. In this case, they are doing that. The 5th level is the one marked with the red, so that will be the variance portion. It's a 5th level parking garage, though it is actually lower than the 68, and that's also one of the reasons why staff is supporting the variance. The height of the parking garage is actually 65 feet. It's lower than what it will be considered under the regulation above the 5th story where the setback is required. But it's a 5th story, so it's a 6-story parking, so they will have to ask for the variance anyway. They are asking for a variance of 10 feet 8 inches to provide a conditional setback of only 16 feet 4 inches. Staff is supporting this variance because the non-active use permitted by the code. The changes on the parking podium are actually lowering the parking podium, so it's beneficial for the concerns, as I mentioned, raised by the edge building. And actually, the 6th story is below the 68 feet indicated by the code as a requirement for the setback. So we consider it's a minimum variance, and it's beneficial for the efficiency of the project. And another topic, the original approval had certain conditions regarding the public open space. They have addressed most of their conditions, like adding additional connections to access the public open space. We think it's an important change what they are doing with the open space. It will make this space actually more usable for the residents of the 2 buildings, but also the district as a whole. Making the open lawn in the center an area that can be enjoyed by people with, playing and events. The applicant has expressed its interest in activating this space with special events for the district and the building. So we think it's an interesting, or it's a beneficial, it's definitely an improvement from the current condition. The art in public places has not been incorporated because the applicant decided to pay into the art fund instead of incorporating in that. That was also a condition imposed on the December approval, so we are recommending to removal. As I say, staff is recommending replacing the trees on the south side to provide for larger trees to screen the garage. And we are also recommending additional seating. It could be movable if they decide to do so, but additional seating so the edges of the open space, the lawn area, can be enjoyed by people. They are suggesting the retail space probably going to have some outdoor seating in there, which is perfectly fine, but we think some seating for the general public additional should be added in the open space. Based on that, regarding the special review by the Downtown Action Committee, and based on the findings that the special review satisfies all the criteria of Article 2, Section 9452B2, staff recommends approval of the proposed amendments to the December 9, 2020 DAC approval. The following changes to the conditions of approval are recommended by staff, and they are kind of extensive, but I'm going to go through all of them. Regarding the open space, we're recommending that incorporate more shade trees around the perimeter of the open lawn, specifically along the south side of the open space to screen the parking garage. So the underlined text is something that we are adding to the previous condition. If you see a strike-through text, we are removing that condition. Condition B, required to provide more access from the Clearwater Drive sidewalk to the open space. They have complied with that, so we are removing this request or this condition. C, rearrange some of the required seating to appropriate areas, including the large paved areas along Clearwater Drive, east of the open lawn. So we are listing this one as complied because it's basically reference to the seating walls that they had on the open space that they had rearranged. D, rearrange the planter beds with the area between the building facade and the open lawn to prevent unintended variance between the lawn and the building building commercial spaces. They have also rearranged this and provided additional openings from the building frontage to the open space, so we are listing this one as complied. E, provide through renderings and other means illustrative examples of how the space will be programmed. We are also removing this one. As I mentioned, the developer has suggested that they are interested in programming the space, so we don't think this condition is necessary any longer. F, consider the incorporation of the art in public places into the design. We're removing this one. The project will contribute to the art fund, so the art will not be incorporated into the project. G, refine the treatment of the open lawn edge to ensure the space integrated as one single public open space and maximize its use by people by providing additional seating. This is the one we are maintaining in reference to the additional seating that we are suggesting in the open space. H, the design of the public open space shall be brought back to the DAC at a later date once the design has been finalized. We're suggesting to remove this because they have updated the design and we think it complies with the standards required right now. Regarding the building design, we are maintaining the condition I that suggests that continue to work with the staff on the exact materials and placement of materials while maintaining the break of the massing into a base, podium, and tower element. We will continue working with the applicant on refining this. They will continue evolving that. We think the building is in a good stage right now, but we always have some details that will be worked at the end. J, evaluate expanding the building base to a more appropriate dimension in relation to the overall building height. This is recommended for removal because it's not applicable to the amended design any longer. K, the applicant shall work with staff on screening the upper two levels of the west facade of the parking garage. We're recommending to remove this one because the parking podium is lower and those are not subject to concerns at this point. And then additional conditions included the applicant shall relocate existing oak trees to the water treatment plant or another suitable location. These are the trees that exist right now on this site, and they will have to be removed, so the condition is still in place. M, the analysis of the access drive intersection at Australian Drive shall be evaluated for impact and any mitigation by the city traffic engineer. The traffic engineer has removed this condition. They have worked all the traffic concerns that they had. And N, the public open space shall be open to the general public during established hours, sunset to sunrise to sunset, with a sign posted at the most apparent entrances containing language that establishes such requirement meeting the definition of the public open space. Staff is recommending to maintain this condition. Regarding the variance, the staff recommends an approval based on the finding that the variance request satisfies all the criteria of Article 2, Section 9438D6. So staff recommends a variance of 10 feet 8 inches from Section 94-116, Table 4-12, Building Requirements CLD 25 to reduce the conditional setback for parking above the 5th story on a secondary street from 27 to 16 feet 4 inches. That concludes the staff presentation, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this case?
Mr. Chair, I have 2 public comments and 1 Google Voice.
Okay.
The first comes from Blaine Lichtig. He says setbacks should be enforced in the vicinity of the quote open air close quote train station, which is a unique historic asset to the community. It should not be quote boxed in by nearby structures using setback variances. And he says he opposes the project. The next is from Frank Albrezzi. He says, as homeowners, we are strongly opposed to any variances, waivers, or amendments submitted on behalf of the 350 Development LLC All zoning rules, regulations, and laws have been approved and enacted to ensure appropriate land uses for cases such as this. The developer was fully aware of these limitations at the time this parcel was chosen for development. As currently approved, this project is already too large to comfortably coexist so close to our existing structure. This development will already limit views, light, and air to our complex while increasing congestion and density, thus adversely impacting quality of life for both parties. The developer should not make their financial considerations take priority over the greater good. All zoning laws in place should be strictly adhered to. Thank you in advance for your favorable consideration, and he opposes the project. A Google voicemail comes from an anonymous caller. Last four, the number is 8337. Hi there, I'm calling to leave a public comment regarding the construction on 350 South Australian Avenue. We are again the building as a rental property, 26-story. It would lower property values, an apartment to neighboring building at 300 South Australian Avenue. It would also block from light towards residents facing the building, an invasion of privacy. People can look into windows and overlooks. It's a terrible idea. That is the end of public comment.
Thank you. So I'll now turn it over to the board for any questions and comments. Brad, can I start with you?
Sure. I have a quick question. Anna Maria, when the requirement, as I understood it, is for screening above the 5th floor, but with these changes, are they going to screen all of the floors of the parking garage or just certain ones?
Yeah, the requirement for screening for the garage is for all the floors. That is the architectural treatment requirement that the code has for any non-active uses. So they have provided the treatment of the garage with this. If you see this one, they have these basically punch openings for each of those boxes, and they have those panels that will recess, creating kind of some articulation. That is considered architectural treatment. So the entire parking garage will have that treatment and look like the base of the building.
Okay, both sides there.
Both sides, and actually both like Clearwater Drive and then the frontage on the public open space. On the side interior, I don't know if you have, Alfonso, an elevation for that one. They have the architectural treatment turns around and basically has a portion of that facade that is a side interior facade with the same treatment, and then starts to kind of disintegrate as it goes back to the building, and then has a less intense architectural treatment on the side interiors that are less visible.
It seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that from the exterior looking in at the garage with the trees that will be in place and the screening, the public would not see automobiles in the garage on any of the floors. Is that right?
I think most likely because probably you have the crash barrier that is pretty high. If you want to come here.
The openings start at 42 inches above the floor of the garage, so you're not going to really see any cars, especially not from the street. I mean, if you were floating at the same level, you might, but from the street looking up, there's trees. Even from across the street, you probably wouldn't see any cars in the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Michael?
I don't think I have any specific questions about the changes. I think they make sense. I think they're respectful of the Edge 1 and other buildings that are adjacent. So I think the variance, the parking variance is minor, and I agree with staff's recommendations. Two related questions. Just curious why you are deciding not to work with the AIPP. I think it's called Art Life now, as opposed to creating a, piece of artwork on the project. Is there any specific reason, or just to save time, easier, or?
For
What's the thought
one,
process?
we don't really control the public open space. We have consent to actually complete that, but we don't have any kind of deck action that we could go back and protect our art. We felt that it also was a better bargain for us to provide the money to the city to utilize in a way if they may come back and put it in that same park. We thought it was a better opportunity to just give it to the city and let them decide.
Okay, I was just
But really,
curious.
We just didn't have a place to put it on our property because the park is not specifically our property. We have consent to improve that park, but we don't own that park.
Well, I mean, I guess the reason I'm thinking about this is, again, regarding the screening on the garage, and the 303 Banyan project that's under construction is doing this really interesting orchid treatment with this light boxes on the garage, and that's actually going to be adjacent to their public space on the first floor. So it really, I think, is going to create a nice space for their public open space, and it was, I think, a creative way to improve the facade or the wrap, so to speak, on the garage. So I was just curious, and again, any opportunity to improve these public spaces, I just think that, you know, they're going to get used more if people like, you know.
That was our
Bingo.
intent. We spent most of the money on, fixing the drainage so we could create the formal lawn. We worked with the DDA. They were interested in having places where they could do movies in the park, that kind of stuff to activate the neighborhood. So that's why we really kind of wanted to keep that area open as much as possible, because they're looking at it as a program space in which, in times like this, you can get outside and have some type of, maybe a board meeting or something like that outside in the public lawn.
Yeah, no, it's a much bigger space, and I think that's fantastic. One last question. Just attended a Downtown Neighbor Association event at Jose Marti Park, and I ride my bike to most places in the downtown, and there's no bike racks at all, which I've made it clear to Parks and Rec that they're going to work on that. But is there a bike
There are bike
racks
racks
for this
provided
public
in the
space?
park and around the building and in front of the commercial uses.
Approximate? Can you know how many approximately that would how many bikes would be able to park there near the public space? I mean, 20,000 square feet is a pretty big public open space. I hope it's not 2 bike racks or.
No. I think there's a requirement by code for the bike racks, and we're meeting that requirement. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many spaces we actually have, but it does meet the requirement that the codes stipulate. So, and we also have, for the renters, we have parking or storage for bicycles inside the building as well.
Yeah, I'm
So there wouldn't be.
familiar
using
with the
those.
codes for the buildings. I believe it's 1 bicycle spot per 8 parking spaces, which I think needs to be looked at because I just don't think it's adequate for these buildings, as I've made public comment before. I don't know what it is for the outside areas.
Yeah. We have, this building is proposing micro units, so they have, and I don't remember exactly what is the number for the, but it's a higher number of parking spaces required for the micro units than the regular. I believe the regular is 1 per every 15 spaces, parking provided, and the micro units I think it's 1 per every 10. So they have a specific room inside the garage where they're providing the bike spaces for the tenants of the building and the retail space. Then outside, they are required 1 bicycle space per every 100 feet of frontage. So the frontage on Clearwater Drive, we work with them and provide that. So they are meeting that requirement. They have also designated a space for the future location of the micro-mobility in the proximity of the open space. So once the city enters into an agreement with that, there will be a station in that location also.
Okay. Obviously, just as we increase density here in the downtown and we're trying to keep cars off the street, we still have these, pretty high demands for parking spaces. I just think we should really try to look beyond the minimums. So if that can be looked at, I think that would be helpful for people that are trying to get out of their cars and ride their bicycles, whether it be for the inside parking, which I believe it was 1 per 8. I don't know for the micro units if it's I guess it would
We
be,
would be committed to working with Anna to find some space to make sure there's adequate
Yeah.
parking for the open space. Because if I hear you correctly, it's about people coming to the open space and having a place to park. We will look into it and see if we can find any extra space or improve the capacity.
yeah, as you have this retail space on the ground floor, again, someone like me, I don't want to drive 6 blocks, but I would definitely want to ride my bike and go to these places, and I think other people will
Understood.
go there more if,
We work with Anna
yeah.
to make sure it's maximized.
okay, thank you.
Great. Gregory?
Yes, so I do like the previous design first, but I do understand the limitation and what the applicant was able to do with the proposed design. And I do also like you guys managed to fix the pool and making it much appealing. But my question is, who control the public space, as far as sometimes if sort of to mitigate owners not to try to push people out, make it a more welcoming space. I know you guys mentioned the DDA might try to host events, and the space will be open from sunrise to sunset, but really trying to keep it a more welcoming and not a free for all, but really make it a welcoming space. I just want to know who controls that and how people access it.
The public space is a requirement that we have, is a space that is privately owned but publicly accessible. So the developer is responsible for, it's owned by them, and they are responsible for maintaining and secure it and monitor it. They cannot enclose it. It has to be open to the public, as we said. Of course, under certain circumstances, if somebody is doing something that is not appropriate, they could call the police and they can be removed from the space, but it's supposed to be open to the public. And that's the way it has been working with all the public open spaces that had been created in the downtown. And so far, we have not had issues. They understand very well that is basically their own asset, but also a community asset. So we have not had issues with that.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. I just had a couple questions and comments too. I think Brad asked about the garage, and I guess maybe it's just a general comment for your rendering and your computer. To me, it looks like on the proposed elevation on the ground floors where the parking garage is, that there's glass. Looks like some kind of gray plane there, which, as I understand it, there'd be nothing. It's just a hole, and you would see black, really. Is that correct? Yep. And then the other image was on, I think, the pool deck side, or there was another image again where it just seemed like there's some kind of material or some kind of planar element within the hole, and I think it accurately should be just a void in black if it's open, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what you're referring to exactly. You're talking about on the garage levels themselves?
Yes, if you look at the proposed elevation on the right side of the screen, on the bottom of that image, you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories of the parking garage, and each of those holes, yeah, right where that cursor is.
Yeah. Yeah, here.
Yeah, so,
Those are open, and what you're seeing is you're seeing inside to the underside of the
The roo-
slab. And
okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to denote it any other way, but there is no glass there. The opening is this area right here. I don't know if you can see the cursor.
oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, that's the opening. This is solid. This is part of the crash wall,
Okay,
and so is that. So the opening is just that right there. And this is 42 inches from here to the top of the slab.
okay, thank you, appreciate that. Then my other comment was on the pool screening. From the image that was shown from the adjacent building's pool deck, it seemed like it was well landscaped with hedges around that blocked views to the garage. But in looking at the building proposed, it didn't seem like there was any landscaping there. I saw a bunch of chairs and deck chairs. Is there a requirement for the elevated landscape plan? Sorry if I missed it, but
Yes. Yeah, there's a requirement, and we didn't show it on this model. I apologize, on our building, because we're more concerned with the view from the adjacent building. But there's a plan. It's in the submittal. There's a landscape plan for the pool deck. There's a requirement of 30% of the area of the deck being landscaped. So we're meeting that requirement, and there's a design for it. It's not shown on this view, but there is a plan for it.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. So in that image on the left where you see all the chairs, are you saying there's going to be a hedge that screens all of that with the people and you would not see that, or you would see that in that image?
Yeah, I mean, we're right now actually working on refining that landscape and programming that deck, but yeah, there will be landscaping along the edge that will obscure some of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. My other comment was just on the relocation of the tree. I know that was a condition of approval, and from all my experience in tree relocation is very easy to move a tree. It's the follow-up care that is really what's required for that tree's success. So generally, I think it's a pretty large tree. When we move large trees, when I'm involved with that construction, when they get relocated, typically they get set up on an irrigation mist system that runs for 4 hours a day. So I don't know if the condition could be just expanded in terms of who's responsible. Once this tree gets moved to an off-site location, who's responsible for irrigating it and staking it, maintaining it for that establishment period so you know it's going to live and take.
You can definitely add that as an additional part of the condition.
Okay, I think that just needs to be part of it. And typically you can hire the tree relocator to do that, to just be on board to set that up, but that is definitely going to be a requirement.
City property. It's not to go off the water plant to do it.
Okay. Yeah, he's just mentioning that the trees are going to the water treatment plant, so they will need consent from the city to access for the maintenance, but we can just coordinate something, I'm sure.
Great. And that's all I have. So with that, if there's no other further comments, would anybody like to make a motion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can make a motion to approve. We have to probably read the entire, I don't have it
think
in
you
front
have
of
to
me.
read
You'll
it
need
from-
2 motions as well, Michael, 1 for each item.
Okay, so read the motion to approve. So read item A here.
Yeah, the motion is in the staff report, so you can read it
I
from
don't
the
have it
staff
on me.
report. Can they just read the letter and the
They can read the letter, or they can say, including all conditions listed in the staff report, items A through whatever that final letter is.
Okay, so just read regarding the special review
Yes.
by the DAC, and based on the findings that the special review satisfies all the criteria of Article 3, Section 94-9052B2, staff recommends approval with the proposed amendments to the December 9th, 2020 DAC approval. The following changes to the conditions of approval are recommended. Modify the public open space to incorporate the following recommendations. A, incorporate more shade trees around the perimeter of the open lawn, specifically along the south side of the open space to screen the parking garage.
And you can say remove B, C,
And remove B, C, and D,
E,
and E,
F.
F. G, refine the treatment of the open lawn edge to ensure the space is integrated as one single public open space and maximize its use by people by providing additional seating. Remove H. Regarding the building design, I continue to work with staff on the exact materials and placement of materials while maintaining the break of massing into a base, podium, and tower element. Remove J. Remove K. And additional conditions. L, the applicant shall relocate the existing oak trees to the water plant or other suitable location. Remove M. N, the public open space shall be open to the general public during established hours. Example, sunrise to sunset, with a sign posted at the most apparent entrances containing language that establishes such requirements meeting the definition of public open space. Regarding the review of the Downtown Action Committee and based on the findings of fact that the variance request satisfies all the criteria of Article 2, Section 94-38D6, staff recommends approval for a variance of 10 feet 8 inches from Section 94-116, Table 4-12, building requirements CLD 25 to reduce the conditional setback for parking above the fifth story of a secondary street from 27 feet to 16 feet 4 inches.
And I'd like to add to that condition for L that the applicant and city staff will work together for a maintenance plan of the relocated tree.
Okay, so if we can please vote on the separate approvals. One is the first vote will be for the special review,
Okay.
adding an additional condition or adding a sentence on the condition N. No.
L.
Which one is? L. L.
Okay. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And now the approval for the variance.
The additional conditions, oh, I'm sorry, the variance.
You already read that motion. We just need a
Oh,
second.
sorry. Do I have a second on the
Second.
motion? Hearing a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The variance is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Next on our agenda is code revision cases. That's what that was. E is the administrative appeal. Do we have any administrative appeal? No. Next is unfinished business. Any unfinished business? No. Any new business?
Nope.
Any other business?
Now, quick,
Yep.
I have a question for maybe for legal. Is there a way we can shorten our motions, meaning that we have the general language, but the condition, maybe a way to, maybe a statement that reads, include all motions, all conditions, so we don't lose track of them in time of reading the conditions? That's just a recommendation. Maybe that could make things more seamless, where you read the main motion and then the condition can be implied by a statement. Okay.
Okay, good to know.
But you did a fine job reading.
It's always a chore. Mr. Green, any other exciting statistics this month or exciting news in the city?
Rick Green, Development Services Director. As we mentioned at the last meeting, we are as busy as we've ever been. Our amount of Class A office space will be doubling. We had 1 million square feet. Now with everything else that's in the pipeline, we have additional office developments proposed for Rosemary Square, 300 Clematis Street, which is also tied to, 301 Clematis, 300 Banyan, the Galleria building in the parking lot behind it, just west of Duffy's. That was just submitted yesterday. You guys approved a code amendment for a boutique hotel. That came in yesterday as well. But surprisingly, I looked at the building permit numbers from March through through June. The last six fiscal years, we average about $786,000. This year, we've done $411,000 more than that, about $1.2 million. So it's crazy how busy we are. The pandemic is driving corporations and people to West Palm Beach in unprecedented numbers. So yesterday was our application deadline. We had 11 new applications came in, so it's not slowing down. So we're glad that Chris is here. We're trying to take some of the burden off of Anna, but she's been very busy because a lot of those developments are happening downtown. So
One question. I believe next week there's a city commission meeting that's going to talk about the height limit above the current public site. Did we already approve an increase in height here at the DAC?
for what now?
The public site, in
Well,
downtown?
That was scheduled for last night. It got continued for 2 weeks. So that'll come back on July 26th. But the applicant requested a 2-week extension. They're working out some issues with the Property Owners Association next door. What was approved last night on first reading was the downtown housing incentive program that we presented to you a while back. So that was approved on first reading. We're going to do some additional number crunching for the commission. That's going back to them on August 9th. But that was well received by the commission and.
And I think that's probably what you are remembering. That amendment included some additional development capacity for the north side of the Publix block. So that is part of the DMP. This, where the Publix is right now, it's part of the DRI. So you did not see any change.
Oh, okay, okay.
That was
That was my question.
Well, we had a second one that got continued.
But they didn't see it, 'cause it's part of the DRI.
So the north side of the alley, I guess we're talking about, where they're looking to expand, is part of the DMP.
Yes.
So will that have to come through or not?
Well,
Not-
you already approved.
Oh, we did.
The
Okay.
changes to the regulation to allow additional development capacity.
Okay.
If they come in with a project on that site, as they will with the entire block for the Publix, you will see it. Yes.
Okay. And then just the second question was, Rick, do you have any plans to do your, I guess it was bi-yearly development update, which everyone loves to
The
hear?
developer outreach meeting, yeah,
Yeah.
we were doing 3 a year, and because of COVID, I kind of put it on hold. We've been having discussions about maybe doing a Zoom meeting and then sending that invitation out, because, again, there is so much going on that if we can find the time to put that presentation together, yeah, we probably should do it.
Okay.
I have a quick question, Mr. Green, if I may. I think you said last month that March, April, and May were record permit months, and I think it probably goes without saying with what you just told us, but it was June on that same pace in that it set another record in permits, or are we slowing down?
I was hoping, Brad, that we've never had 4 months in a row of $1 million in building permit revenues. We fell a little short. I think we were like 911,000. But only twice in the city's history have we had 3 months in a row of $1 million a month, and one was just, again, this past quarter. Now, it looks like it was deleted, but I showed a graphic at the commission meeting on Monday. It was very telling, but it showed what happened when COVID hit. So it shows we were doing revenues, and then when COVID hit, there was a tremendous drop. And then the next 4 quarters, the revenues have been going up consistently. So we've had 4 straight quarters of increases since that dip. I certainly can send that to you separately, but it was pretty interesting. And we expect that trend to continue because, again, the amount of development we're seeing is not slowing down. We're working with Mr. Cohen on the tent site on Okeechobee Boulevard. He wants to do a Class A office building, almost 400,000 square feet. Related's one Flagler building, the Class A building, they want to start clearing in September. And then we met with Related just yesterday to talk about the Movie Code block as part of Rosemary Square because they're looking to make some changes there as well. So a lot happening, and that's just in that little quarter, but we have a lot of other things happening elsewhere around the downtown and even the city as well. So.
Thank you. Interesting.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Okay, and next is adjournment. So without any further ado, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, and good to see you.
Thank you.